the last comment I'd like to make is that I do believe that a regional, just wonderful park is necessary for us to attract out-of-valley events. Right now, almost all of our traveling teams, for the high-end kids that travel, that are really successful, have to go out of the valley because we don't have the facilities here for other teams to come here to play. So I would like to see us move forward with the regional concept. Again, well done to the consultants and staff. Appreciate your time.
Can I add something to gender specific?
Gender specific.
Ivy gymnastics, better than 90% of our enrollment.
So that's what you're saying.
Yes, yes, I heard. I just wanted to voice that.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. I think everybody said everything, so.
Okay, done.
Yes. Let me just make a couple points, and I'll probably be a little bit pessimistic more than what we've heard. I think it's interesting. I think people need to take a look at this list here. Because the numbers that we were talking about, I think it's a wonderful document. You have to have a vision. I think Ms. Pitkin said that earlier. We have to have a vision. So it's certainly important to lay something out like this, but I think the real hard numbers need to be looked at. I don't, Mr. Red, I don't know off the top of your head if you know what we're spending on Parks and Recreation this year in the budget. But I can tell you it isn't anywhere near the $7 million per annum that this plan requires. And as we've already stated, haven't done historically a very good job of taking care of our existing facilities. Now, it said this ever since I came on the council, I am not super in favor of new projects until we show that we can take care of what we have. I look through the numbers here and I look at the estimated cost for Buckland Park. I don't know that $600 to $800 to $1 million is going to do to Buckland Park what needs to be done to Buckland Park. Now, it all depends on what we're going to settle for. Okay? We have the most magnificent park at Buckland in this entire county. What are we willing to settle for? Now, we can talk about building a skate park, building another park, building another park, building a neighborhood park, building all that. It doesn't do us any good if we can't take care of the ones we have. And if they become eyesores and they become nothing but, Buckland Park needs to be tiled in all likelihood in order for it to drain properly, in order for the grass to be green and flourish. Anything else we do over Buckland, fixing it correctly, is a waste of our time. So, while I'm not knocking this estimate, but my estimation, you're probably looking at $5 million to clean Buckland Park and to make it the park we all expect it to be, and this community expects it to be. So I think we've got some real tough choices to make here as to where we go. And if we continue to expand parks and things, keep in mind that it's not just coming up with the money to fund the construction. It's how do we pay for the maintenance of that park. And that's one of the problems we ran into. We've got a beautiful field in Swarthout Park that is not being able to be maintained. We used to play soccer there, right?
And then we screwed up the field.
Well, okay, but because there wasn't a strategic plan and there isn't the money to maintain it. And, so we've got a lot of these facilities that we've got to figure out, that has to be priority. And I'm concerned when we start putting other priorities up at the high level because to me, everything else is medium until we get those standards up to not only what we expect, but what the city council and the city have adopted. Because we have adopted in the last couple of years some pretty high significant park standards. If you go and look, as many of us have, go and look at Legacy and Memorial Parks over there. Now that's the standard of the city. But I always caution us. If we don't keep ourselves as a city to that standard, how do we have any expectation to go out to the community and expect them to keep their own yards or businesses into that standard? And we can go out to all of our parks right now and I think suggest that we have a long way to go to get to the standards that this council has passed in the last 2 years. So in general, I'm very happy about this document. I think one of the concerns, and this will probably irritate everyone in this room, one of the concerns that is a recommendation, and it goes back to my previous comments, the concern of mine of raising the number of acres per thousand without the ability to pay for it puts a false standard out there. Now, we haven't shown an ability in this community over the last 25 or 30 years to maintain 3 acres per 1,000. To expand to 5 acres to 1,000 doesn't mean anything because we haven't shown the ability to pay for what we've got. And as we know, we're going to expand. We know the developers are required to donate parkland right now, and as projects come on, and they have. The question I have is, do we have the ability to maintain the park to the standard that we asked them to deliver? Now, I don't want to get into too much of a negative, but I went over to, what's the name of the park in Kennedy? Fraser Field. I was there as the president of the school board a number of years ago when that park was dedicated. And I know a number of us were there. And it was beautiful, lush, green grass with a beautiful infield, with a beautiful fence. And if I go, and I went to Fraser Field just a couple of weeks ago out and threw out the first pitch for our Centro Little League. It's not to that standard that we accepted it as. I know that the Babe Ruth people do a wonderful job over at Sunflower Park. It's not to the standard it was when it was delivered. That's a shame on us as a community. Because if we're going to go out and ask public-private partnerships, then when somebody puts in that time, that volunteer effort, that money to provide us for a better facility, then we have to show the ability to maintain it. So I think we need to be very cautious about where we are. And when you look at this money, and I spoke to some people earlier, one of the parents out here said to me, well, why don't people pay for it? Well, that's the real question here. If the people want a park of any kind, then they have to be willing to pay for it. Now, how do we do that? We can pass some exorbitant fees, because I can tell you that the developer of a project, based on the analysis of this $113 million cost, will never build another project in El Centro if they're going to pay fees based on that number. So what we have to do is decide as a community, and we have to go out and ask our community, are you willing to pay for the parks? You want a skateboard park? You want this kind of park? You want an upgraded regional park? Are you willing to pay for it? Because, one thing that was brought up earlier during the discussion was the fact that Brawley has a skateboard park. Well, Brawley's community put their money where their mouth is, because they have a half-cent sales tax in Brawley that pays directly for parks and recreation. So I've always been impressed, and I think any of us who have coached throughout the valley or been involved in youth sports or activities have always been impressed with Brawley's parks and recreation. But the difference is their community is willing to put their money where their mouth is. Now, we don't have $5 million a year or $6 million a year to pay for what we all want in this plan. And I all agree. Everything in there. I thought some of this thing is just astronomical in providing the ability for this community to have activities that are family-oriented, that reach all segments of our population. But the reality is, we have to get back to the reality of, are we willing to pay for it? And I think that's something we're going to have to do as a council. Cheryl talked about the community service, and that's what we expect is the Community Service Commission to give us that feedback, to set those lists of priorities, and bring those recommendations to the council. It's going to be the council's obligation to go out to this community and see what they're willing to pay. How we do that, I think, is a great question as part of our strategic plan. And I think that's going to be the real key here is, these are some great projects. Are we willing to take them? Okay. That being said, I want to thank our consultant team. They've done a wonderful job. We are very encouraged, and as a city, it is important that we move forward with these types of documents because it does lay out a long-term plan, and it certainly does lay out for future generations where we want to go with things. So I think we find that very positive, as we've tried to do in a number of areas, is catch up, so that when the next